Thank you. Okay. Miss Owens,
Here.
Mr. Ledever,
Here.
Mr. Smith, and Mr. Parker.
Here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Alrighty, next up, approval of the minutes from the May 17th meeting.
Madam Chair, I would like to move acceptance of the draft minutes of the May 17th, 2017 minutes. They're accurate and really well done, and I would encourage everyone to read them, but there was so much excitement at that meeting that those who are of frail health probably should not read them alone.
Anyone like to second? Excellent. Moving right along. Any agenda adjustments? Oh, we need to vote. I always forget about the voting. Sorry, guys. Can we please get a vote to approve the minutes then? All
Aye.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Now, moving on. Any agenda adjustments?
No adjustments, Madam Chair, but I would like to welcome Ryan Parker, who is our newest member of the committee. He's the general manager at the Canary Hotel, and he's here in representation of the lodging industry. And welcome, Ryan. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, welcome.
Madam Chair, I don't know if everyone in the room or at home realizes that the Canary is not only a member of the Kimpton chain, but has from its roof one of the 10 best views anywhere on the South Coast. So people that ever want to talk to Mr. Parker about stuff could do worse than to go over and meet him at his place of business.
Nice plug. All right, and it looks like we have one public comment. A member of the public here that would like to speak. And if you'd like, you're welcome to join us at the podium right there.
Okay.
There's your mic.
My name is Jay Goolsby. I'm on the board of the Omni group up. It's our Mesa Neighborhood Incorporated. And I did have some papers to bring, but I'm an old man and I forgot to bring them. Anyway, one thing I'd like to mention, which I've mentioned to the city council before, but everything I mentioned costs money, and that, so it doesn't get very far. One was to build bridges across Cliff Drive, and one is to build a bike path, or create a bike path, along Arroyo Creek from Modoc Road, and be on the west side of it, on the side of Goleta, or Hope Ranch side of the creek, and come down. It's a beautiful creek to walk down or something, and to imagine just riding a bike there, and that would be quite an effort to build a bike path along there, but it's possible, actually. And other cities and places I've been to, they do that sort of thing, and they even have sculpture in public places and so forth, which I've also proposed that to be at the Meigs Road and Cliff Drive, well, Meigs and Shoreline, where they meet. There's a open area there for where we could have sculpture that's visible to Washington High School. Grammar school. So anyway, this bike path, it would be very healthy, and for the kids that go to high school from the Mesa to the high school, which is toward Goleta, and it would be good for them both physically and aesthetically, and just give them a really more great sense of contact back to the earth. And if you're interested, I could give you a map of it, because I do have one. I just forgot to bring it.
Yes, Mr. Moldaver.
Mr. Goolsby, I want to thank you for your input and suggestions, and I wonder the project you were talking to us about and visualizing, how is that different from the one that's already been approved and is in the process of being contracted for in the same general area?
Okay. Well, the difference is that it's a shortcut. It actually reduces the distance from the high school to Cliff Drive because you don't have to go all the way over to Las Positas, La Cumbra. And also, it's less dangerous, so the one that's already proposed is closer to the cars and goes right along Las Positas. So, and like I said, it's less dangerous, shorter, so it gives the kids less, they don't have to spend so much time getting to school. And like I say, it gives them a better experience going to school. It's part of the learning process. So the difference is, it doesn't go all the way to Cliff Drive there on Modoc Road. So we're La Cumbra and Cliff Drive.
Thank you for your comments. Would you like to add anything? Or no? Any new members of public? Any additional comments for today? No? All right. All right, Mr. Benson, any committee member or staff communications?
No.
Moving right along then to our business items. So first up, we have the Education and Outreach Program update from Liz Smith, Education and Outreach Coordinator. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you. Okay. So hi there, everyone. I'm Liz Smith, Creek's Outreach Coordinator, and I'm going to give you a little update on the last several months of our Education and Outreach Program. So we have a broad variety of tactics that we use to get our information to the community, and that includes youth watershed education, community events, paid advertising, a lot of online and social media, printed outreach materials, and then outreach specific to our various projects and programs. Our youth watershed education, as you know, is primarily done through a contract with Explore Ecology, and in fiscal year 2017, they reached over 3,600 students. And Creek's division staff are always available to provide presentations to other school groups at any time. And so in the last few months, we've given presentations to Laguna Blanca and La Cuesta School. We participate in and host many events throughout the year. Our biggest one, of course, is Creek Week, and that is coming up September 16th through 24th. We invite the community to visit sbcreekweek.com and follow us on facebook.com/creekweek, SB Creek Week, pardon me. And we promote Creek Week in the Independent, Voice Magazine, Coastal View News, on TV and radio for the week leading up to and during the event. Lots of online outreach. We put it in our email newsletter. We will print up postcards and posters to distribute in the community. And then we also look to our event hosts. We partner with the county, the cities of Carpinteria and Goleta, UCSB, and many other organizations to host events. And so we look to them to promote their own events, but also Creek Week as a whole, to help us spread the word. Another big event for us each year is Earth Day, and this year we kind of went all out. We had our Creekman superhero in attendance. He presented Explore Ecology's Environmental Stewardship Awards to local students and teachers. He was available for photos with fans. We had a face-in hole that we painted so that people could take their photo as Creekman. And we made up some little buttons and stickers and little goodies to give away to the kids. Also at Earth Day, we were the city's passport stop for the event. So when kids come to the event, they can get a passport and they visit each booth and get their stamp. So for ours, we had a Clean Water Hero pledge, and we asked kids to fill out on a little card how they would be a clean water hero and put it up on this big board we had. So these are just a few examples. This was the very first one. It was probably like a 5-year-old. And that was their interpretation of not throwing trash in the creek. So that was a lot of fun. And this year we also did a leaf pack experiment. So a couple weeks prior to Earth Day, we put some little net bags full of leaves out into a few locations in Mission Creek. And then the morning of the festival, went and retrieved them and unpacked them at the event so that we could see what types of aquatic bugs had inhabited the leaf packs over the previous couple weeks. So as you can see, the kids enjoyed playing with little creek critters. And all of the creek critters were returned to the creek at the end of the day. We also had a building block display, and you can see we had two little properties, I guess, next to each other, one showing the bad activities and the other showing the good activities for water quality. So, for instance, on the left, we had somebody spraying pesticides, somebody not picking up after their dog. And then on the right, for the good examples, we had a downspout going to a rain barrel, permeable pavers. So that was a really great display to get people talking and get the kids interested, and it was a lot of fun. So some other community events that we've participated in are City Trash and Recycling Division's Looking Good Santa Barbara event, and that's coming up October 14th. We also attended City College's Earth Day Festival, which I think they haven't done for several years, but they brought it back this year, so we were there. Also the Underwater Parks Day at the Sea Center, and we're always looking at other community events to see if we fit in, and if we're invited, we're happy to be there. We also work with many volunteers throughout the year, and I wanted to highlight this group of students. All three of these photos are varying members of the same class. It's a Santa Barbara High School AP Environmental Studies group, and they worked with me the last few weeks of the school year on their AP project. They spent 4 days replacing storm drain markers. They replaced 226 markers in the San Roque and Upper State Street neighborhood. They spent a day at East Beach where they cleaned up 121 pounds of trash from the beach, and they did a cleanup of Mission Creek with us and removed 215 pounds of trash from Mission Creek. So these guys were just awesome. I worked with them for a few weeks. Great group of juniors and seniors at Santa Barbara High School. And the last several months, we've also worked with Notre Dame School, the YMCA's Pilots Program, Tobes Group, Laguna Blanca School, and Channel Keeper. And we coordinate the California Coastal Commission's Adopt a Beach program in the city of Santa Barbara, so at City Beaches, and I wanted to show you guys who our current beach adopters are and how long they've been with us. So Urban Creeks Council, at least 2006, Channel Keeper, at least 2007, maybe earlier, but we have a lot of interest and getting some overlap lately, but the more the merrier. The more people we have out cleaning the beach, that's great. And we like to recognize these folks for their hard work. Our advertising campaign, currently our Creekman campaign is still running. We have English and Spanish television PSAs on Cox Media stations, Univision, KEYT, and City TV. We have MTD bus ads. The interiors ads are up year-round, English and Spanish. The exteriors are up right now during the summer months, so look out for Creekman cruising around town. We have our radio PSAs, again in English and Spanish, on multiple local stations. And the first time this year, we've done movie theater advertising, since we thought Creekman would go nicely with all of the superhero movies in the theater these days. So if you're at the movies, look for him there too. Our online and social media outreach, we of course have our website, and I just did a little screenshot. We have our Close the Poop Loop highlighted here. People can click here and sign the pledge, and we'll send them a little doggy bag dispenser. We also have yard signs that people can pick up if they'd like to share the message in their neighborhood. This is kind of hard to see, but we have our pollution reporting form, so our list of clean water businesses, just a ton of information available. We send out our email newsletter to over 880 subscribers. There have been a couple since I put this together. We are continually growing our social media following, posting videos on YouTube, and we have Nextdoor available to us where we can post events or news citywide or on a more neighborhood basis. And then we also have the city's News in Brief, which is a weekly email sent out by the city administrator's office to over 2,200 subscribers, local press, and city employees. So we definitely add news stories there when appropriate. I wanted to share some of our printed outreach materials. We have a variety available, and most of these are posted online and also available in Spanish. We recently updated our homeowner's guide brochure here and our coloring book for the kiddos. We have a handful of different rat cards for specific, we have our simple tips, and then we have our Creek Tree program, our business program, and our youth education rat cards available. Our 2017 report that you recently received, and stickers and tattoos and lots of fun goodies. And then when we have our larger restoration projects or our specific programs, we do a lot of different outreach around those. So I've got a big list here and a couple highlights. So here's a photo from our wildlife camera at Barger Canyon and the ribbon cutting at Barger Canyon, some familiar faces there. And here's the invitation. So we work with City TV to create Inside Santa Barbara TV segments. So just a variety of ways that we try to educate the community about what we're doing. And we have our certified business program. Currently, we have 181 businesses participating. And we promote the program through community events, through direct mail to businesses, and also through our enforcement program. So if we get a call about a business who's doing something wrong, we can go and educate them and hopefully turn that into a certification and then have them working to protect our creeks and ocean. And once businesses are certified, we promote them in Food and Home Magazine, The Independent. We list them on our website, promote on social media, and in our email newsletter. And the city also sends out a quarterly Doing Business in the City email, and we'll include them there. And right now, if you drop by City Hall, you'll see the entire list of certified businesses in the display box, as well as our little rat cards available here for anyone who's interested to learn more. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
It's a lot to take in. Thanks so much, Liz. Excellent work with education and outreach. Did any of the community members have any questions for Liz? No? Lee, you sure? Awesome. Thanks, Liz. That was great.
I actually, your presentation was superior, and I know you and the program are doing a lot of work. Do we have any kind of a follow-up metric or indicator that we use for school or civic groups that have done a project or had an in-classroom presentation like a year or two later to see how much interest they retain from their initial contact with the Creeks Education Division?
Thank you, Mr. Moldaver. We survey the teachers. Explore Ecology surveys the teachers at the end of the year, teachers that they've worked with to provide presentations to. But as far as the students and how much they're retaining, it's just anecdotal. We hear from people, who have done the program earlier in their childhood. So hopefully some of them are retaining it and enjoying it and learning.
All right. Thanks, Liz. All right. Business item B, Arroyo Borough Open Space Restoration Project update with Aaron Markey.
Good afternoon, Chair Owens and committee members. Thanks for having me. I'm here to give an update on the Arroyo Borough Open Space and our planned restoration effort. So this is the open space park that's at the end of Allen Road, the former Veronica Meadows property that was acquired by the Creeks Division last year. It's about 3/4 of a mile upstream from the mouth of the creek and upstream of our previously completed Mesa Creek and Arroyo Borough Estuary Restoration Project. So here's a more zoomed in view of that property. It's a just about 21-acre property made up of the acquisition that we did last year. That was 14.7 acres, and then a 6.2-acre property that was acquired by Parks and Rec a number of years ago, 1998. This property has about 1,600 linear feet of creekside habitat and is an excellent opportunity to do some restoration work to improve wildlife habitat and water quality on the property. The southern portion of both parcels is that kind of green line shows where the coastal zone boundary is. So the southern portion of both are within that coastal zone boundary. And the 14.7 acre parcel is in the process of being rezoned right now to Parks and Rec. We went through a number of approvals to do that, and next week, City Council is supposed to adopt the new zoning ordinance, which that's included in. So the Creeks Division has been working over the last year to develop a restoration project for this property. And as part of that effort, we've done a fair amount of community outreach. The Santa Barbara Urban Creeks Council hosted an event last year as part of Creek Week, where they talked about the whole watershed and specifically talked about some ideas for restoration opportunities at this property. And then in October, the Creeks Division held 2 different community meetings, one with kind of stakeholder groups, one with neighbors and property owners, to talk about what might be included in the development of the design, as well as future park maintenance plans. And then just last month, we held another round of community events to discuss the actual concept plans that we now have developed. So just some of the existing conditions before we talk about the plans. This whole section of creek is fairly incised. From upstream and previous urban development, the creek channel bed is actually downcut through this section of creek, and that's created steep, actively eroding creek banks. This is a section at the upper end of the project site where there's about 100 feet of just a slumping, eroding creek bank. As well, the channel incision has prevented the creek from accessing what would historically have been its floodplain. As the channel is downcut, we have about, in some places, 12 to 15 feet. The channel bed itself is 12 to 15 feet below the kind of upper bank habitat area. And so the creek is not able to reach that historic floodplain habitat. In addition, there's pipe and wire revetment, concrete debris, all sorts of other unnatural features that we would like to see removed, in addition to non-native vegetation throughout this section. So arundo, Cape ivy, eucalyptus trees, and a number of non-native species that are degrading the overall habitat quality. So floodplain habitat, I just briefly wanted to talk about. This diagram illustrates very well kind of our existing conditions in the upper photo. You can see your low flow. I wish I had a cursor. Does this work? Yeah. Your low flow or average base flow is kind of contained within the low incised channel bed. When you get a higher flow, that also is contained within this incised channel. It's only on really, really large storm events that you would have flood flows accessing these upper bank terrace areas. And so we obviously can't go back and raise the channel bed at this point, because that would create flooding hazards up and downstream in developed areas. But what we can do is grade in low floodplain terraces adjacent to our existing low flow channel and create some of that floodplain habitat. And this is really important ecologically. The flooding on these low terraces, that water is allowed to spread out and slow down, soak in, have some groundwater recharge. In addition, it's capturing sediments and nutrients and kind of acting as a biofiltration for those storm flows. In addition, this allows for a much wider, diverse kind of riparian zone and a greater creek buffer area and wildlife habitat. So with that in mind, these are the concept designs that our engineers, Waterways Consulting, has developed at this point. The areas shown here in green, let's see. The green areas are basically areas where we're proposing to go in and grade in some floodplain benching to recreate some of that floodplain habitat. And then the light brown areas, the tan areas, are where we're proposing some bank grading to kind of reconnect those areas to the existing grades and upper benches. And so those will be at a slope that we can then revegetate, whereas in some places now we have really steep areas that are unvegetated or covered in non-natives. And then the dark brown areas are areas where we're proposing some sort of bank stabilization or restoration. And we have an existing sewer line that's exposed in this area. And then that really large slide I was showing you in the previous picture is up here where we'll be going in and putting in some engineered fill and tow rock and woody debris structures. So I have a few cross sections which show this a little better. So these are all oriented looking upstream. This top one is that upper section we were just looking at. So there's kind of a line here. This is that cross section we're looking at on the next slide. So you can see we're actually rebuilding this creek bank with some engineered fill, putting in some tow rock, willow stakes throughout to help stabilize that, but also reestablish native vegetation, and woody debris structures, so some root wads to also kind of help deflect flows away from that bank. Las Positas Road is just right up here. And then rather than doing just a straight floodplain bench in this cross section, we've decided to do more of like a secondary overflow channel because there's an existing large sycamore tree that we're trying to preserve. So we're going to work around that and have some little benching that can be accessed here, but then additionally on higher flows, this will act as kind of a secondary overflow channel, creating similar habitat. And then also providing some relief from this bank as well as far as high flows. And then this is the section just a little further downstream. We're actually going to be doing a little bit of biotechnical bank stabilization here. This is a section where we have a very steep bank existing, but there are large mature oak trees at the top that we want to preserve. So we don't have the opportunity to lay this creek bank back. So we're going to do some toe stabilization with willow poles and coir logs and do our best to kind of protect that toe, and then at the same time relieve some of that erosive pressure by putting in this floodplain bench. And so you can see existing grades are shown here, and this is our proposed grade. So quite a bit of excavation. So existing some of those areas are 12 to 15 feet above the low flow channel, and in the areas we're proposing to do this terracing, it's on the 3 to 4 feet above channel elevation. So we're expecting them to be accessed on roughly the 2-year storm event. And this is just a rendering of that last cross section showing some vegetation, post vegetation establishment to get an idea of what it might look like. And this was something we really highlighted at the community meetings, that there's going to be an extensive amount of temporary disturbance here as far as vegetation removal. There's all of these areas that were shown on the site plan in green are areas that will be graded. Primarily, we're talking about non-native arundo and native arroyo willows will be most impacted in those areas. And at this point, the plans we're proposing would not impact any large oaks or sycamores. That's something we wanted to make sure to preserve, so we're avoiding all of those. And the willows that are removed from these terraces will be salvaging tree stakes off of and reusing that material in the revegetation effort, as well as avoiding any root wads where feasible and possibly relocating. And because we have perennial flow in this section of creek, which is amazing habitat-wise, but also for reestablishment of vegetation, we expect it to recover fairly quickly, as we saw downstream on Mesa Creek, where, here we are 10 years later, and the vegetation is 30 to 40 feet tall. So just highlight some of the outcomes. We're going to remove over 300 linear feet of pipe and wire revetment, and in some places that's basically spanning the channel in areas. It's not serving any purpose at this point. Concrete rubble and other types of rubble that we uncover out there we'll be removing. We're going to increase access to an acre of floodplain habitat, remove over 500 or repair over 500 feet of eroding creek banks, remove non-native vegetation, including 16 eucalyptus trees, planting of over 5,000 native plants, so that includes 475 tall trees, so oaks, sycamores, cottonwoods, and alders. In addition, we'll be doing extensive willow staking and container planting, so I didn't include the willows in that number. And so overall, restoring 4.5 acres of creekside habitat. And so our next steps, we hope to continue to move the designs forward, working with Waterways under a new contract to do some additional survey work and developed more detailed civil designs. We hope to have an additional iteration of the designs around this fall so that we can start doing our environmental permitting and have that completed by next spring. And then once our final construction designs and permits are ready, we hope to put the project out to bid next April with an estimated construction start date of July or August, depending on nesting bird activity. And we're expecting about 2 months to complete the civil grading portions of the project and 2 months to complete the landscaping portion, so the erosion control, planting, irrigation, all to be completed sometime in November, December, depending on when we actually get started. And so we currently have 2 pending grant applications for implementation funding. We applied to the State Coastal Conservancy and the Department of Fish and Wildlife. And we hope to apply to other opportunities before the end of the year. And with that, I'll take questions.
Great, thanks, Erin. Yeah, excited to see that restoration project move forward. Does anyone have any questions here on the committee? Mr. Multiver.
Have you had a chance to talk to Jane Gray at TUDEC, who helps oversee the various state water habitat restoration bonds for the 4-county area, to see if this project might qualify for a current or future allocation of funds?
Is that through IRWIMP that she oversees the funds? We haven't actually reached out, but that is an opportunity we'll look into. Yeah.
Thanks. Anyone else? Can we take questions from the public? Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Do you have any
Jay?
You should go to the mic.
paths, walkways along the creek, or bikeways?
Yeah, I think so. I can repeat it.
Okay, yep, perfect. Or I can repeat it. Oh, sure. Question from the public from Jay. Are there any plans for pathways and, did you say bikes too, or?
Yeah, footpaths and bike.
Footpaths and bikes through the restoration project. Thanks, Erin.
Yeah, I think I must have forgotten to mention this. It's currently an open space park, so this is a property that is open to the public currently. It has about a mile of path that is open to bikers and hikers for passive recreation as of right now. So we are potentially planning some changes or improvements where in some areas where we're really close to the creek, we may be narrowing it to kind of limit the impacts close to the creek or close to existing oak trees. We may have some directional fencing we install around kind of areas where there's steep banks and we don't want people walking down the creek bank and creating further erosion. We may kind of have set access points where people can walk down and get to the creek. And those are all things that we hope to incorporate in this next set of design plans, more of those nitty-gritty details. Yes, in some areas where we're going to be doing some restoration, we don't want people necessarily trampling our plants. We may install some split rail fencing, not anything that's excluding wildlife or anything like that, but would just kind of provide direction of where access point to the creek would be better.
Thanks. Any other questions from our members here tonight? No? All right. Thanks again, Erin. And with that, we come to the conclusion of our business items this evening. Do I make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Next up is adjournment.
I'd like to second that motion with the hope that between now and our next meeting, everybody who's here and everyone who's watching has a wonderful Greek festival and Old Spanish days and the Perseid meteor showers if it suits their opportunities and interests. Thank you.
Excellent. Do we have to vote then? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thanks everyone.